So I posted a video a while back around a model called the PI model from a chap called Harvey Coleman, and it looks at basically why do people get promoted in organisations, and PI stands for three things: stands for performance, impact, and exposure. And in the video we talked about the idea that although performance is really important and it gets you sort of into the room, as it were, impact is really important. That's your sort of leadership shadow. By far the most important dimension of all three is exposure, and Harvey's research suggested up to 60% of your sort of promotion chances are based on basically your exposure, which is in essence, do people know who you are? And when I work with clients, certainly support people around their career, I'm always surprised at how much they think, well, if I'm just a really good leader and I do really good things and I hit my numbers, eventually I'm going to be recognised, and the inevitable will happen. And what they find is it doesn't happen, and they get frustrated with why other people getting promoted. And the simple essence is they're not just putting enough effort and enough focus into exposure. If you think about it, it makes some sense. At some level, the organisation, if you think about the senior leadership for an organisation, they can't know everybody. They have specific relationships with certain people. And so if you want to move on in an organisation, it's important people know what you're doing. So you could call it marketing or PR, or you're managing your brand, but effectively it's about making sure people understand the value you're adding. Now, the way to approach that is frankly, is take a quite disciplined approach. You should write a plan around how you're going to do that. You need to stick to the plan. So your plan might start with your line manager and say to the line manager, okay, if you're going to help me to move on and to get promoted, there's some things that a line manager can do. The line manager can bring you in to critical meetings. They can bring you in as a sort of trusted advisor or an expert. The manager can step back slightly, or the leader can step back and let you step forward. So bring you into those critical meetings, being your sponsor is really important. Clearly, the things they say about you in things like performance and talent reviews are going to be very important. So they have to be a strong advocate. And in some cases, they may say, look, to really define succession, if a manager's trying to help support this person to become their successor, they may restructure the team. They may say, well, let's restructure the team slightly so you get more accountability, you get more exposure, you get greater access to big projects. And so you would take sort of structural changes in a team to allow that person to be given the opportunities. Over and above the manager, then, what you should be doing is thinking, well, who else is out there in terms of the decision-making circle? So your line manager's manager clearly is a key stakeholder. There will be other people. So mapping who those stakeholders are, really saying, what kind of relationship do I have? Do they know even who I am? How well do they know me? Have I had any contact? And then having a really clear plan of how you go and contact those leaders and get time with them. And most leaders will be very generous with their time. I mean, most leaders I find, if you reach and say, look, I'd like a cup of coffee, I'd like to have a chat, I would say you would use that as an opportunity to learn about what they're doing. So it's not just about you asking them for your help. I think it needs to be a sort of a two-way process. But I find most leaders are very, very generous with their time in terms of supporting talent. So investing time in building a network of people who are generally going to be more senior than you, in a wider part of the business, who are going to be part of this sort of decision-making process around future promotions, really important. And I think once you've got that network, then finding other people other than your line manager who can be your advocate. And I really can't stress this enough. I mean, as much as you have, really, you try to have clear processes in organisations, and things are trying to be done in a sort of very fair, sort of logical way. Inevitably, relationships are critically important. So if you're someone who says, well, I don't like to sort of play this game, I mean, that's a fatal error. You've got to get out there and you've got to build your networks. And if you're from a sort of underrepresented demographic within an organisation, maybe from a race perspective or from a gender perspective, then that's going to be more challenging, but you've still got to do it. So building your network of advocates is really important. And then I think then having a very clear manifesto. So when you have your conversations with senior leaders and you get those opportunities to meet senior leaders, having a really clear narrative around who you are, what value you're adding in the organisation, and what you would like to do next. Just be really clear. There's so many times I've sat in sort of talent review meetings and leaders have talked about certain candidates and have said, well, I don't really know them. I'm not sure if they're that interested in getting promoted. And you go and speak to the candidate and they're like, oh my goodness, no, I'm super excited and I want to move on. So having a very, very clear manifesto, a very clear personal brand, and really having I suppose a set spiel that when you're with these leaders, you're able to articulate as clearly as you can what do you want to do. Over and above that, I'd say it's things like accessing as many opportunities around exposure. So, go to the conferences, internally and externally. Use LinkedIn. It's a great way to get your sort of your words out there in the wider market. But people internally will look at your LinkedIn posts. So think about all the ways you can sort of market and brand yourself. When there's a leadership conference internally, and there's a Q&A, put your hand up. Ask questions. Speak up on calls. Anything you can do to sort of build that profile. And if there is the social events, go to them. A lot of people don't realise that those events are effectively networking events. It's a great chance. So grab a cup of coffee, go up to someone, introduce yourself, say hello, practice that introduction, learn more about those people, and then follow up. Say, it was great, I met you at the Lunch and Learn last week. It'd be great if we could have 15 minutes over the next couple of weeks just to have a chat. I wanted to get some advice or some help from you. Just simple things like that. You'd be amazed that if you do that in a consistent, planned way, you can very rapidly build your profile. So performance, critical. Your leadership impact, yes, you've got to work on that as well. But I would say the thing that most people don't put enough care and attention into is the managing the exposure for their career. I hope that helps.